And a very warm welcome, everybody, to this edition of Kaizen Central. Wonderful to see so many of you joining us tonight. Welcome to newcomers, welcome to old hands, and such a great pleasure to be able to do this every Thursday evening. We're just obviously waiting for a few more people to join us. There'll be a couple more coming along. I hope everybody's had a good week. I was having a chat with one or two of you earlier, and we were trying to find some good news in amongst some of the fairly rubbish news around the economy and all that kind of thing. And the very sad, start your video, Nick. The very sad news we're getting on the medical front is obviously deeply worrying, but I'm wondering if anybody just wants to talk about some of the good news that they feel has emerged recently that we can take into the next year and feel confident about how things might have changed and what bright spots there are on the horizon. Who wants to put their hand up to talk? Somebody. Hello, Richard, off you go.
The £3 billion announcement for the injection to training, and it's coming to Greater Manchester, and this is going to be to retrain people who are clever at home, can't get into work, such as women with children. And the whole point is a company, and people like manufacturers, anybody with the tech, is they say this is what we need as the skills. They're then given the course that then matches them perfectly to say you will have the skills. When they pass the course, they're straight into work. And this new work is not 9 till 5. This is any device, anywhere, anytime. So they can log in, they can then carry out the work and then log back out again. So the government has found at long last how to get hold of a massive pool that has been unemployed for a long, long time and open up technology now to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And what we were saying earlier was that the one upside of this terrible thing we've been going through for the last 9 months, 8 months, is the fact that new ways of doing things, such as new ways of approving new vaccines, new drugs, which used to take 10 years, and can now be done in a 6 months. New ways of working. We've discussed that before, but I love what you're saying, Richard. That is really good, because obviously we care a lot about training and skills. And I think that the opportunity for new ways to do things. Quick story. I don't know if any of you know Winkworth, the company that makes sifting machines. They're global company. I was talking to their boss a couple of years ago now, and he said, wouldn't it be great if we could have a master's in manufacturing qualification? And this is something that people can take mid-career, so that they can, if they've come out of accountancy, if they've come out of the services, if they've come out of anything really, there are so many jobs that need to be done in manufacturing that you can bring a skill into it, but you may need to have a kind of your skills put through a CNC milling machine and come out the other end with a manufacturing qualification. And I think all bright ideas like that should be grist to the mill, because it's a fantastic way of looking at what we do. Everybody's welcome. There's a role for everybody. There's skills gaps everywhere. And talking of which, before we go on to carrying on about more good news, I just want to say that Angela hosted a brilliant webinar today on how to attract young people into manufacturing. A number of us on the call right now were attending that, and I, for one, thought she did a fantastic job and lined up 3 excellent speakers. And Angela, I'm just wondering if you've been able to distill any insights from that. There's lots to talk about tonight, but if you just want to, just as I say, distill some insights and let us know what you got out of it and what you think we could get out of it.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it was a really interesting hour and a half. It was only supposed to be an hour, but some of the speakers are quite passionate about what they're talking about, so it did go on a little bit longer, but it was quite interesting. I suppose really one of the interesting points made by Alexis was that not about making manufacturing more attractive to the younger generation, but actually making manufacturing visible. And I thought that was quite a salient point, to be quite honest. One of the other key points to come out was the fact that, you know, we have an aging generation in manufacturing, and we're not getting any new blood through. And we really need, it's something that we really urgently need to address now, to get young people into manufacturing and get them interested. I thought out of all of them, probably Plymouth Manufacturing Group had some of the best ideas, where they actually appealed to the parents before they appealed to the kids, because parents are quite influential on the career paths that their children make. So if you can appeal to the parents, then you can, you know, you've got a better chance of hooking the kids in. But I think also from what Richard just said, that was quite interesting as well, because my daughter, when she was, I mean, she's 30 now, but when she was at school, she was extremely good at physics and all of the sciences and maths, to be quite honest. And her teacher, when she was doing GCSE physics, wanted to try her on some A-level papers because he thought that she would really excel. And when we talked to her about doing it for A-level, she wasn't interested. And she said, well, what can I do with physics? And the only thing that we could suggest was become a physics teacher. And because we didn't know what else she could do with it, and the school didn't advise her what she could do with it. And I think that she would have been brilliant in engineering and manufacturing. She's got that sort of brain. But at 30 years old now, when I suggested to her, she says, well, how can I get in now? It's too late. So it's, you know, quite interesting really to hear what Richard was saying.
Yeah, but it was a really great session. I'm going to keep boring everybody rigid by posting this article that I keep posting, the one I wrote about visibility, because I think that there we go. The point I'm making that about visibility of manufacturing in the daily life of ordinary people, but given that the big factories have gone and everything's now on industrial estates, etc., people just don't see manufacturing anymore, and I think that's one of the points around it. So I've put the link up. Nick Johns, can't see you, but I hope we can hear you. A new friend from Greytech. Are you able to talk? Can you see us and hear us? I think he may be having a problem. Okay. Anybody want to pick up on just on what Angela was saying? I think that Richard's point about that training, the new money being spent on training is really, really salient. And anybody sort of feel that at last in this country we might be getting to grips, particularly as I think the funding for FE is going to go up as well. We're getting to grips with the terrible dearth of vocational and FE training that we've had over the last 15, 20 years. Who wants to pick up on that? Anybody got any thoughts? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
No, there we are.
Yeah.
Nick, good. I would just say, you know, the BBC programme Inside the Factory. Mm-hmm. I think we need more of that kind of stuff on, because, you know, if I was 12, I would hope that my mum and dad would stick me in front of that and say, you know, this is good training for the future. And, you know, Greg Wallace, he's the sort of current version of James Burke, you know, who I grew up with. You know, a nice, warm kind of character who gets excited about everything. And you watch his program for an hour and, you know, you just cannot not get excited about it, because he's just so effervescent with it. And I think we need more stuff like that, because, you know, it's educational and it's fun to watch. And, you know, a career should be fun as well as it being a source of doing a job and bringing income in. So I do think we need more of that, whether it's on the TV or other places as well.
Yeah,
I think it'd have to be on other places to get the media. The TV, terrestrial
Yeah, it
TV is not
probably
the place
would.
for youngsters.
Yeah.
Netflix
Yeah.
and, you know,
A
that
lot-
side of Amazon would have to be.
I agree with you, Adrian. I liked the In the Factory.
Yeah.
But, I think if I was young, I might not be that enthusiastic about going into manufacturing, because a lot of it does focus on a lot of the great operators in the factories with great craft skills. And it usually involves Greg making a total twat of himself, trying to pour 8 gallons of porridge into a big hopper or something. Maybe what it doesn't focus on is sometimes is the incredible software skills, the mechanical engineering skills, the sensor skills, the planning skills that go into all that automated equipment. So in other words, there's I mean, just see those tins of stuff, and you've got to make all that stuff.
Yeah.
Soup. Okay, so it's 10 million tins of soup, but it's got to be clean as well. You've got all the hygiene, the amount of expertise that goes into running things like food factories is well, it's just incredibly deep. There's a lot of background skills go into it.
Well,
it's not
thing
so
for
obvious
me
from that,
is,
but I do like it.
Yeah, I think
I go back a few years. Sorry, Adrian. I go back a few years, and I was at a university presentation that everybody would probably know from a manufacturing point of view, down near Luton that way. And we were discussing in the forum there engineering and degrees, and how the attrition rate was phenomenal after the first year of the engineering degree. And the answer was to put more people in the funnel. Now, for me is, what's the root cause analysis of why we're losing them after the first year? What's happening? So, and this was a few years ago. So for me, have we still got that? Are we still having this attrition rate after the first year? From these engineering degrees, these manufacturing degrees? And if so, well, what's the problem? Not flood more people into it. It's understanding what is actually happening within the degrees that we're losing these people. I can remember not so long back, only a few years back, being at Warwick, and we met a lady as we were coming out, and she looked after all of the engineering degrees, 1,500 people. And I asked how many were actual UK national. Yeah, 50. I think it was 50 or 60 out of 1,500. There's a whole host of different things that we need to tackle. I haven't got the answers for it at all. Some of it will start with the parents, but again, parents can influence it, but the children have got their own, the kids have got their own choices. They can make their own minds up. And that forcing them down that route may be why we ended up getting the attrition after the first year, because they found out it's not what they wanted. So you've got to have an interest in it, from my side.
Yeah, and I think you've got to have that 360-degree understanding as well of what it's all about. And I totally agree with Steve that that show, fun though it is, all it really shows you is that somebody involved in manufacturing is pushing a button here or chucking some stuff in a hopper there. It doesn't really, they're just minding machines. Everything that goes into that, all the intricacy of building the line and all the stuff around that is missing. And I'm not saying it should be in that show, but I think that an understanding of that would in general terms, so people understand, as you said, Steve, that it's about the software, it's about the hardware, it's about it's about the chemicals, it's about the cleaning, it's about everything. I just think that's in a sense why I do what I do. I'm trying in a small way, and hopefully in time we can build on that and maybe build some of that stuff out with a more consumer-facing thing. I don't know what that looks like, but I'll give it a shot. Just like to welcome Nick Johns. First time. Nice to see you, Nick. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Nick. And I do apologize. Working for a technology company, I'm having technology issues, but I'm here now. So nice to meet everybody.
Hello, Nick.
Do you just want to say, I know you're really interested in training. I really hope you can address that, but just tell people who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Nick Johns. I head up the digital and advanced manufacturing business for Greytech in the UK. So Greytech's a technology, services, consultancy and training organization. And my role is really to work with companies, not only on their digital transformation, but also very, very passionate of helping manufacturers to implement really strong, efficient and effective learning technologies and systems.
So I don't know if you were able to hear or whether you were struggling with your tech.
Yeah.
About what Richard was saying about the fact that there's I think the Prime Minister calls it lifelong skills or skills for life or something like that. I mean, they're putting a lot of money behind that. And I think that must offer some real optimism about people's ability to switch careers, move into second or third careers. But of course, everybody's going to need training in order to make that a reality.
Yeah, I think it's all changed. I think you're absolutely right, Nick. I think there's a couple of things that we're seeing certainly out there in industry at the moment is lifelong skills is now a prerequisite. It's not a nice to have. It's not something that you may need to do and not do. It's something that people do need to do. And I think what we're going to see in manufacturing, and very similar to construction as well, I think we're going to see people that need a wide range of skills, not just focusing on one particular area. Manufacturers are looking for people that are they have a real comprehensive understanding and knowledge of not just one particular technology or area or skill, but an all-encompassing wider range. And I think that's a big difference we're seeing at the moment, certainly with some of the larger manufacturers that we work with.
Anybody got any thoughts on that in their own companies? Barry, I wonder, are you a company that encourages people to have multi skills across various parts of the company, or do people have sort of very, very focused niche learning?
No, the first. We've in fact we give pay incentives for people to be multi-skilled, and it's all linked to their annual reviews that they spend time in different departments. And if you spend time or you do projects in different departments, then you move up the ranks quicker through bands, etc. And that's mainly because there's a shortage of skills people in the area where we are. I mean, you talk about it nationally in Cumbria, we just don't have people. There's more people live in Bradford than live across the whole of Cumbria. So when we get someone that's willing to learn, we do it. We've got over 30% of our staff now are on NVQ level 3 and above. We've got a host of apprentices, and we're trying to engage with the schools just to try to make what manufacturing to be known about it, to make it, hey, that's quite interesting. And we get the schools in and we do the tours, and we spend a lot of time doing tours of our business. We open the doors and we get other businesses in just to try to get it out there, about what we do. And I think manufacturing needs to do more than that. There's not an awful lot of manufacturing does this, just getting on. It's, we do what we do, and we don't go and speak to anyone else, and we don't open our doors to anyone else. And, and we're scared to death of letting anyone in because they'll steal all our secrets. And, and that's probably why a lot of people don't aspire to be into manufacturing. But, we need to ask kids, don't we? What do you want to be when you're older? Do they still say nurse and policeman? I have no idea. But I bet there's not many say I want to work in a factory, but they might say they want to work with computers, which guess what? We can do this, that, and the other. So yeah, the answer to your question is we work pretty hard to upskill and cross skill because we have to, and we found the advantages of it as well.
Harry, when you work on schools, are you aware of their curriculum, and can you actually present something within your company that supports the curriculum?
Yeah, we're actually getting funding for it actually from Sellafield to do it in Copeland schools to do exactly that. So they do an annual project called Bright Stars, and it's for primary school kids. It's really good. It's getting funded to do it, and it's hitting their objectives. But some of the worrying statistics on the other end of it. I heard last week apprenticeships, 2/3 at the rate of people not carrying on with an apprenticeship, or apprenticeships being terminated at the end of the apprenticeships, increased by 2/3 during COVID. And you're like, yeah, we're going to have a lost generation, aren't we? It's going to be stop-start, or we stuck with our experienced staff. Yeah, well, they're all going to retire in 10 years, and you've got your pipeline coming in, and so I think that's going to come back and bite us. But I saw only today, and I'll have to find it very, very quickly, but T levels you have to do, and you probably all know this, so I didn't, but a T level requires a 45-day industry placement or 315 hours over 2 years of the course. So, that could open the door to getting people into factories, if manufacturers grasp it and don't go, oh, I don't know if I can be asked for that.
Yeah, I think that's the key issue, that you really have to integrate yourself with the local school system, as exactly as you've done, from primary upwards, and make it relevant, build it so that you're actually contributing to the curriculum. So it's not just the kids that get excited, but the teachers do as well. And so the teachers can actually better understand what manufacturing is about and carry that back into the schools and reinforce the message. I think that's very, very important.
And what I've not mentioned, and I should, sorry, is we worked for the last 6 years now with Lancaster Uni. We started working with Manchester Uni as well. But we've done, I think, 16 student projects at the last count over the last 5 years, where there's 4 or 5. Now they could be undergraduate, but I think the majority we've done are postgraduate student placements and student projects, where they could spend 2 weeks or they could spend 3 months working on a project. Well, and they're going off back around the world. I mean, 50% of them are foreign students, but, they're understanding about, manufacturing, and they're coming and sorting problems out for us. And they're not studying manufacturing, they're management students or business students, but, we're open, and it helps us, massively helps us. They sort some really hard problems for us at times. I mean, some have burned, some have been useless, but it's us opening the door and saying, come on in, come and have a look round.
Yeah, Angela, in the seminar, in the webinar rather, I think it was Alexis. What she was it the careers and something service? Pardon me for not remembering where she's from.
So it's SEMLEP. So they're enterprise advisors.
I wasn't thinking of her. I'm thinking of the wrong person. Anyway, there's a report out. But they were all associated with this careers service, something or other, careers and enterprise company, I think it's called. And they came out with a report recently that said 94% of large companies were engaged with the education system. And I immediately, that set off alarm bells, because it didn't mention SMEs, and B, I thought, well, large companies get their act together, they can assign people to go and do this. And of course, what they end up doing, as always, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they are pulling the talent out of universities to go and do undergraduate degrees and that kind of thing. It just feels like SMEs are missing a trick, not just for the long-term future, which they can be forgiven for saying, well, actually, I need to focus on my survival now, but actually getting bright young people into your company can change everything just by bringing them in and giving them their head and finding out what they think of life and what you do. Who's had some very young apprentices in who've changed the way they look at their own business because somebody's come in and brought a fresh perspective?
Nick, I have a bit of a view on this. So I was trying to get a word in 5 or 6 minutes ago, but I think what it all boils down to, and I don't class myself as young, unfortunately, anymore. but I do think that I'm younger than the average probably in manufacturing. And I think what it all comes down to is when you were a kid, so sorry, I'm on my mobile. I'm busy cooking a lasagna. So when you were a kid, you used to play with what toys, right? You probably played with Meccano, those kinds of toys. So my 11-year-old nephew has just got his first iPhone and he's 11, right? So I think that the technology is changing. And I think the issue that manufacturers are having is that they are not as prevalent online and in the digital sphere as the big tech companies, right? Because from a young age, where big tech companies are influencing kids to focus on a life in technology. So Meccano has now all but disappeared. Those very dangerous and somewhat worrying chemistry sets that you had when you were a kid have all but disappeared because of health and safety. The engagement through learning and toy and play at a very young age has disappeared for the manufacturing industry. And I think that plays a crucial role in, asking a kid, what do you want to be when you're young? Oh, well, I used to play doctors and nurses, so I want to be a doctor. Well, did you build a little truck when you were a kid? No, my parents wouldn't let me buy a Meccano because it's too dangerous. So that's part of it. And also I think we have to go, as a manufacturing industry, we have to go to where our audience is. It's all well and good that you have all of these schemes where you go into schools and you talk to kids in a very formal setting. But when you're in an informal setting, i.e. where you go on social media and make yourself known on social, on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, if you talk to them in an informal setting, it's going to resonate with them because you're not having a teacher tell them this is what you need to do or this is what's great about manufacturing. So that's just my point of view as a retired young person over the last 10 years.
I'm trying to think of what my first toys were. I think they were all military. It involved mock killing people. That tells you the age I came from. Field guns and the like. It usually involved firing things at people. But hey, yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, Rowan, and thank you for being with us as you were performing your chefly duties while you're doing that. Yeah, I don't know. This whole stuff around. These are great ideas, and I love Ram's suggestion in the chat about his 2-month-old daughter. Bless her, get her a 3D printing machine, make her own toys. I think that's brilliant. But these are great ideas, but obviously somebody's got to pick them up, and it's the forum. I've said, and I'm sure you all agree, that people have been trying to beat on the doors of government for so long. And the government doesn't even know, in many ways, that we even exist. I mean, if you look at the Prime Minister's announcement on the path to carbon net zero 2050, and he talked about all those wonderful things, sort of £50 billion for offshore wind farms. Well, half that money, unless somebody stops him in his tracks, half that money will go overseas. It won't be invested in us. Building a more resilient, homegrown wind farm industry. We do have, I think, is Sea Green on the Isle of Wight, and we've got Siemens in Hull making blades, but that's it. We should be developing the technology ourselves, and not just saying, well, we can buy it off the shelf from Denmark or Norway or whoever, or Germany. So that's really it. I mean, the government doesn't understand, which is why I don't want to go down this path again, but because we have discussed it before about the need for local clusters of manufacturers to cooperate, indeed create cooperatives, to form a sort of ambassadorship role of getting in touch with local MPs and local councils and spreading the word upwards that way. There's only one engineer in the House of Commons. Well, there was before the 2019 election, there's only one engineer in the whole of the House of Commons. That was Chaya Wanro, the Labour MP. Utterly startling. Everybody else is from an arts or financial background or law or whatever. There's just no understanding of what happens. So I think it's got to start at the grassroots. Talking of technology, I just wanted to move on and ask those of you who've operated heavy machinery, which would be a great many of you, how depressed are you at the fact that most of it, if not all of it, is made overseas? And this is very much part of HVMC's, the High Value Manufacturing Catapults campaign. It's not just to get more companies using industrial digital technologies, but also to encourage companies to grow manufacturing technology companies, whether it's software, AI, augmented reality, or machinery in this country. So just somebody talk about whether they've ever seen, apart from maybe a Colchester lathe going back some years, a large scale modern British manufacturing machinery. Does it exist?
Well, JCB is a good example of that, Nick. I mean, I've worked in a steel coil warehouse where they're cutting parts that go to JCB.
No, I'm talking about the machine that cuts the parts, not the.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
I'm talking about inside factories, the machines that actually make the parts that go into things. And every time I go around a factory, it slightly nags me that the large machines are made overseas. And the point that Sam Turner, who I was talking to today, point he was making, if you look at the top 4 manufacturers in the world in terms of output, US, China, Japan, and Germany, you also find that they make the machinery, the manufacturing machinery and technologies. Our 3.8%, I think, we have of manufacturing output in the world, and 1.1, I think, % of the manufacturing technologies. We've got lots of tool makers in this country. Don't get me wrong, there are lots of them, but it's the big heavy machines. It's the machinery that will actually drive the future, the technology that will drive the future, and we just don't have it in this country. I mean, Nick, your company, Greatech, you're a global company. I know you're mainly software, but I mean, can you think of anything that Britain produces that you sell?
Not really. I mean, even all the software development we do, to be quite frank, is all done in Romania. So I think you're right. I think it's a very good point, and I think one of the things that we do need to sort of really look at and see going forward is that during this pandemic and Brexit and all these things going on, you're going to hear this word now and again, reshoring and nearshoring, and that's not just about supply chains. That's about manufacturing a lot closer to home. So whether that transpires into something definitive, I don't know, but no, I don't really see it, Nick, to be quite frank.
Yeah, Richard, you just made a point in the chat box. Would you like to explain that?
We've got AMRC, we've got Innovate, and we've got obviously the government wanting to throw money at manufacturers. And exactly what you've just said is, who is manufacturing machines? If I want to get a CNC, it comes from Germany, it comes from Italy, or it comes from Japan. We are stuck since the 70s when we moved all the machinery out to other countries. So the government is starting to put the money back in. Rochdale has funded the first 15 million, so the building will happen. We're working with other companies to try and get more funding from the government. So hopefully come about April time, we'll know if it's going to be built in 2 years or 4 years. But the whole point is how do we get manufacturing back to England?
That's the Advanced Machine Productivity Institute, yeah?
Yes.
And their purpose is to develop new manufacturing technologies.
For machines, so it's the machine side of it.
Right.
It's not necessarily 4.0, it's the techniques of how machines are made. How do we get a robot made in England? How do we get production lines made in England rather than having to go abroad.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating, and I think we should have a look at that. Anybody else? That's great. I mean, that kind of local endeavour is absolutely spot on. Really like that. Talking of local endeavour, if I can just finish this one point, actually, Angela. On your webinar today, there was somebody from the Plymouth Manufacturing Group, which Sam has put us in touch with before, and they're an example of a local manufacturing group, and I think they are proving to be a real role model. So we must get them on the program one of these days, Sam, if that's all right. Julian, good evening. Sorry, Angela, you were going to pick up a point about what Richard was saying.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, you know, when I worked at JLR, and obviously part of my job was to work with engineers and line builders to bring in the equipment we needed to build the new production lines. And I would say that everything, there was only one item that we would buy that was actually British made, and that was the guard doors, company called Centerline Machine Guards, who are based over in Wolverhampton. They're the only company that we use that were actually a British company. Everything else was a foreign company.
Well, I mean, I think that underscores precisely why people like Sam in leadership roles in places like HVMC are quite so concerned, because it needs one of you to be a lot more technical than I am. But what Sam was saying was that as these technologies mature, these new digital technologies, a lot of the decision making will be made by AI and machine learning. It's not quite the same thing, I know. But the decision making will be baked into the technology as the technology matures, so that actually fewer and fewer decisions will be made on the shop floor in future. The machines will literally start to run everything. And if we don't have any control, any input into that, then in a sense, we just become, the machines, the machines from overseas are doing the work for us here. And yes, obviously we've got to invest in them, and they'll be our machines. But it's kind of depressing. Adam, hi, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know whether Bob can remember, but I think this would be mid-90s. Limerick Northbridge, Leicester. We took, can you remember, we had that specialist machine made because we wanted to create a totally autonomous cell. Do you remember? And we wanted a fastener. And the old traditional way, centerless grinding, filler rolling, thread rolling, pilot hole, lightning hole, and all manner of stuff. We're all big machines, and we wanted to create an autonomous cell. And so we actually, can you remember, we actually had that designed and built the first section of it into the centerless grind, but it became virtually a Chaku line, a totally autonomous cell. So it's nothing new. You know, Bob from Limerick and the stuff that we were doing, and coming back to like breaking the paradigm and the paradoxical thinking, we were doing it in the early 90s. You know, and it was bloody hard, but we were making machines, because that's what the Japanese that we had in there were telling us. You know, make the machines yourself, make them small, make them versatile, make them agile, make them flexible. And that's always stuck with me. That has from that very first the experience I had from way back then. Build machines, because I know Bob had just put on there, because Grip will do that. I think Bob had just put on. Grip will do the same. They make their machines.
Sorry, Nick. Hi. Can everybody hear me first of all?
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your point, Nick, about the machines deciding for all of us, There is, however, a subtle difference between how a machine decides and how we people decide. And that subtle difference boils down to ethics and a sense of right and wrong. So the question is, how do you program a sense of right and wrong into a machine? Because, if you give a machine will tell you it's better to maybe hurt 5 people than hurt 500 people, but it will not tell you that it is wrong to hurt even one person. So it is the sense of ethics and the sense of doing what is right is what separates us from the machines. And I don't think machines can take it away from us. And as long as we live in a society that is built on ethics, accountability, and humanity and all the faults that we come with as humans, I don't see machines making all the decisions for all of us. Yes, as an engineer, saying this comes across as somebody who is a bit prehistoric or as a Luddite, but I do not see that happening as far as machines are concerned. They cannot take the sense of ethics away from us. I mean, I'm happy to be corrected. I'm happy to talk about it to anybody, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Ram, you make it.
Google has no ethics. They're using artificial intelligence to obviously make money, and lots of money.
Good, yeah. So good point, Richard and Ram. I think what you need to look at, and this has been proven. I'll find the study and post it in the chat. But behind every machine is a programmer or a team of programmers, and inherently that machine will take on characteristics based on the inputs from the programmers. So there might be a sense of ethics. Whether that sense of ethics is right or wrong can be determined by the programmers that sit behind it, because ultimately machines don't. I guess there is some AI and machine learning, but to the vast perspective of the whole program, it'll take on characteristics and ethics of the programmers who programmed it. So we might find jobs going rather from people doing it manually to more and more people being hired to do programmatic work to program those machines.
Yeah, I think actually I take your point totally, Ron. Again, please stop me if I'm talking nonsense, because I often do. But this is all about the way that with machine learning, at the moment, let's say a machine may stop and is basically saying to the person operating it, I need to know whether to do X or Y. Well, over time, the machine will learn that Y is the preferable route under 99.7% of circumstances and make that decision. And will keep on learning to do X, Y, until eventually it won't need anybody to say, no, when this happens, you need to do that, because boom, it's learned for itself. And I take Rowan's point. A machine cannot learn entirely by itself. It has to be programmed to learn by itself, and that's where that any biases or any cultural changes will come from. We won't be in control of them, and there we are. And as I say, I think I'm starting to talk nonsense, so I'll shut up.
Well, Nick, isn't that vital for the future of manufacturing? Digital is going to happen. Well, it's happened. It's happening. It's happened in the bloody 90s. We're a manufacturing company that is struggling for digital skills. And at this moment in time, I can't remember what the stupid statistic was, but a graduate of AI at the moment in the US, there's 40 jobs for every graduate, and the starting salaries in Silicon Valley are 400,000 a year. Which is, I know what I'd want to be if I was a kid right now, but we need them in manufacturing. We will need those skills in manufacturing. So we're just talking about making machines and things like that, but we can invite people in. That's how you can get it in. It's to show that those skills that you don't think exist in manufacturing do, and we need you. And from that, people come in and go, well, I actually quite like that. I love being on the shop floor. I love doing that. We can't just be focused that we've got to get people on a shop floor.
Yeah, well, I've told this story before, but it's worth telling again, that an awful lot of the most talented people coming out of universities in engineering and other skills. Some of the first people offering them jobs are in the financial sector. Met this lad at Factory 2050 up at AMRC, and he was absolutely brilliant showing me around. He told me the story that Goldman Sachs gave him a job or offered him a job at 3 times the money he was going to make there, but he just loved being an engineer on the shop floor so much that he turned them down. But I suspect he was a lone one. I imagine for every one of him, there's 9 more that take the Goldman Sachs money. And I think that's terribly sad. And I think you're right, Barry, that we've got to make it somehow attractive. But the people in the financial sector, they need these skills to be able to judge how to price companies, how to invest in them. Julian, I know you work obviously with a lot of investors, and you understand this game. Is that you need the analysts in order for companies to make the right decisions at the financial level rather than at the manufacturing level? Mute. Sorry, Matt.
I think it is it sounds very logical what you're saying, Nick, but I don't think it's true. I think
that's me all over.
I think anybody could go straight into investment banking and become an expert in analyzing the capability of an underlying company, and the analysts that go out and visit organizations become pretty expert. If you see a stack of pallets in the yard, ready for export, shrink wrapped and ready to go, they know how to pre-assess whether business is trading well and whatever. But the real question you're dealing with, and I think in this group it's been spoken about often, is how do you make going into the business of being in a manufacturing company exciting for the next generation? And maybe what you said, Barry, is a key thing. I mean, there's no organization that doesn't have a tech overlay. I mean, manufacturing is tech in a lot of instances, but forget about artificial intelligence. Just the business of applying tech processing to standard processes is omnipresent and going to grow. So the people who were in businesses that were they didn't think that they were in manufacturing, they will realize they are in manufacturing because they're applying software expertise to augment and bring about change in manufacturing companies. So I think it's a positive thing. I bet it's a cultural issue. That's the problem. How do you get people like me? Because I read mechanical engineering at university. I did my industrial placements with a company manufacturing, diesel components, and I just couldn't wait to come, leave Wellworthy in Leamington and get back up to London with all my mates and go and do. I went to work for ICL, software programming at the time, because I just couldn't imagine a life on the shop floor on a link line manufacturing it. But it was just stupid, I mean, now I would have had a completely different career view. So, sorry, I'm wittering.
Sam, no, of course you're not. Sam.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about my experience through uni, to be honest. So I also studied mechanical engineering, and I was personally pushed down the software and more design route than manufacturing. Mm-hmm. There was no hands-on manufacturing through my entire 4 years master's program. It was all, you've got to design it using this software, learn how to use the software, learn how to go through that process, and then we're going to give it to a technician to manufacture. And then you just get your end result. Mm. So I don't know if that's a UK-wide university thing or if it's just the one I went to, but there's got to be something there that needs to be changed to give. I know you can do industrial placements and all that sort of stuff, but it'd be good to actually get hands-on within the courses as well.
I do. I mean, a lot of my world is helping early stage entrepreneurs to raise finance and get their businesses going, and some of them are product oriented that are going to need manufacturing, and funnily enough, they all think they should do the manufacturing themselves. They see from top to bottom the idea of giving away or developing the intellectual property and being a front-end marketeer and revenue generator for the product as being too separated from the manufacturing, and they all think they should be manufacturing, but actually the current thinking is, no, you're wrong. You know, you don't want to be manufacturing yourself. You want to be focusing on what you're really good at, which is design, innovation, understanding markets, you know, distribution channels, operational stuff, and you should leave manufacturing to the experts. You know, so I suppose that just sort of undermines what I've just said. You know, that how do you get business-oriented, marketing-oriented people to connect with the manufacturing process, when actually all the business schools are encouraging completely the opposite strategically.
That's, sorry, Bram, go.
Yeah, just a quick one, guys. I mean, I'm talking about the time when I did engineering, which I did back in India. And through the entire 4 years of my degree, I was exposed to the actual hands-on manufacturing environment, right from doing sheet metal work to doing fitting, to carpentry, doing welding hands-on, foundry and forging. We actually used to use big hammers, heat pieces of metal in a furnace, pull them out and hammer them to various shapes. Done that, did quite a bit of using lathe milling machines, gear hobbing. We had the practical experience of hands-on making things throughout the entire 4 years of doing engineering in India. So yeah, I was exposed to doing things, cut my fingers, you know, all sorts. I mean, health and safety, hey, 20 years ago, developing country, you know, who gives a damn? But we enjoyed doing those things, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I've fallen in love with engineering even more, because of the actual ability to go and do things and see the results and the fruits of your effort in front of your eyes and see them being used practically. I don't think working for Goldman Sachs is going to give me that kind of pleasure that I get doing engineering, put it simply.
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. And, you know, I think that engineering companies, they tend to, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I may again be talking nonsense, but they tend not to be very outward looking. Yeah, they tend to focus on the beauty of what it is they're creating. And so that opportunity to sort of cross the divide, or the you know, cross the divide between what Julian was saying, where the business schools are encouraging people, you know, have the ideas, come up with the products and the markets, and then give it to somebody else to manufacture. Well, how each other finds each other is an interesting challenge. And I think that engineers, by their very nature, tend to be focused on what they're doing with their hands right there and then, rather than looking out. Again, I may be talking nonsense. I've done it so many times tonight. Somebody stop me.
I think it depends whether they are focused engineers or systems engineers. I was a systems engineer, so I was always taking a broad perspective. So, and I think that's where the business schools, if they're encouraging people just to look at the front end of business, then they're not taking a systemic perspective of the business as a whole. And so all sorts of things like the lack of resilience in supply chain, the sustainability ethics, all that kind of stuff could bite them on the backside if they don't take that systemic perspective. So I would always encourage any element or any training of engineering should always have some kind of systemic systems thinking element to it.
Okay. Well, we've got a few minutes left. We've got 5 minutes left. Anybody got any sort of final thoughts or points they want to make?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. I'm very encouraged by what Barry has said about having schools come round his factory because if you don't let kids see what happens in a factory, they will never actually know unless they watch something like Inside the Factory. And, you know, a lot of teachers have probably never been in a factory at all. So how are they ever going to know unless somebody actually physically takes them? I dare say these days, probably a lot of companies are put off by the health and safety rules of bringing a school bus full of kids around a factory. But I think it's one of those things that's just got to be done, because you'll never actually pass it down. I mean, Richard, you run a factory. Do you have tours coming round? Do you arrange for schools?
I work with the colleges. I'm an enterprise advisor. And then the other one is with the growth company. I'm now one of the delivery partners for a leadership course, and they've paid the money to do a professional video. So we've now got 4 people talking and a full tour, and people are now seeing what happens at Crystal Doors. But your website doesn't show it enough. But I think all manufacturers should have a good PR push to sort of say, this is what it's like working in your company.
Yeah.
Adrian, can I just answer your question, Adrian? I'm seeing at the moment some of the manufacturers we work with, they actively encourage school children to visit their plants and go around, and they do superb jobs, absolutely superb jobs in trying to encourage, you know, youngsters. You know, my son's doing product design at college. He now wants to go into manufacturing. Okay, I've, you know, led the way, so to speak. But we're seeing that these really good manufacturers, some small, some large, they're taking the school children in, and what they're doing, they're really actually sexing up the manufacturing side and showing them that it's not, you know, dirty, greasy. You know, it's at the height of technology. There's data, there's collaboration, there's additive manufacturing. There's an Internet of Things. There's all these things. It's a sexy business, and this is what they're trying to do. And the more we can do at that at a really young level, and reframe manufacturing and get the positioning and messaging right, that's how you're going to change things. At the moment, we're not doing enough of that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it is happening, isn't it? I mean, I don't really hear about it, but it's nice to hear that, you know, we've got 3 examples here of where it is happening. And youngsters have got to actually see it for real to know what it's going to be like as a career. So, okay, there might be pains that come with it, but, you know, if you're going to want to have a workforce for the future, manufacturers have got to go down that route, haven't they?
Sure. Angela, a quick thought from you.
Quick point. When I was at JLR, we would have children on a weekly basis be given a tour around the plant at Castle Bromwich, where I was based. It was just a regular occurrence. And I think one of the interesting things, the one side of JLR in Castle Bromwich is on the Manchester Road, which is a really, really busy road. And they've got screens up on the outside of the factory, and they actually show video image from cars being made inside the factory on the screens outside. I just think that's great. And I know they're a big company, they can do that, but it's really good to see.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Angela, one of the things that Graham Cooper, who was one of your speakers today, Graham from the Leeds Manufacturing Festival, he does an exercise with pupils and teachers with a board with pictures on it. And it's the dark satanic mills, and it's the dirty jobs and whatever, and the kids identify the dirty jobs, and the teachers identify the dark satanic mills all the time. And I think it's wonderful to hear your story about what JLR does. Nobody can afford, or none of us can afford the big screens outside what we do. But heavens, that's a lovely first step. Listen, folks, it's approaching dinner time. And I'm always keen to make certain I let you go at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to say thank you. I've really enjoyed tonight. It was some lovely conversations going on, and I think that Steve has actually just posted on the chat box something that we can talk about at a future meeting. If you read, he said, I'm not going to recommend manufacturing to youngsters until the quality of the management changes significantly. Without an improvement in management, factories just have potential that's not realized and engineers just get frustrated. That is a very, very good point. So I'm going to say thank you. Let's bear that in mind for a future meeting. Bless your hearts. Have a great evening. Have an even better
Night, everyone.
I'll see you next
Everyone, have a good weekend. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.